Grammar Bites, Lesson 54, The Complex Sentence. In the Grammar Bites series, we watch all the videos, so we learn all the rules of English. Let's start with a quick review. I've been talking about the different kinds of sentences. Do you remember the names? First, I talked about the simple sentence. Then I talked about the compound sentence. And in the last video, I talked about the 7 coordinating conjunctions. Today, I'm talking about the complex sentence. What do you already know about this topic? Here's what I know. A complex sentence has one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. This means it can have one dependent clause or more. An independent clause expresses a complete thought. It can stand alone as a sentence. A dependent clause does not express a complete thought. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. Let's look at an example I've used before. I cried when my ice cream fell on the ground. Can you find the independent clause? How about the dependent clause? I cried is the independent clause. It can stand by itself. We can just write I cried. When my ice cream fell on the ground is a dependent clause. It needs I cried in order to make it make sense. We can't just say when my ice cream fell on the ground. Something's missing. Let's look at a few more examples. Today I've taken the examples from gingersoftware.com. I like to eat the candy before I watch a movie. Can you find the independent clause? Yeah, I like to eat the candy is the independent clause. Before I watch a movie is the dependent clause. If you need to, stop the video and read the sentence yourself. Because he was late again, he would be docked a day's pay. What is the independent clause? He would be docked a day's pay. What's the dependent clause? Because he was late again. While I am a passionate basketball fan, I prefer football. Independent clause? I prefer football. Dependent clause? While I am a passionate basketball fan. Although she was considered smart, she failed all her exams. Independent clause? She failed all her exams. Dependent clause? Although she was considered smart. Whenever it rains, I like to wear my blue coat. Independent clause? I like to wear my blue coat. Dependent clause? Whenever it rains. Having a party is a bad idea because the neighbors will complain. Independent clause? Having a party is a bad idea. Dependent clause? Because the neighbors will complain. I'm extremely happy since I retired. Independent clause? I am extremely happy. Dependent clause? Since I retired. The dog jumped on his lap while he was eating. Independent clause? The dog jumped on his lap. Dependent clause? While he was eating. Annie was still crying, although she had been happy about the news. Independent clause? Annie was still crying. Dependent clause? Although she had been happy about the news. Let's review what we learned today. A complex sentence has one independent clause and at least one dependent clause. An independent clause expresses a complete thought. It can stand alone as a sentence. A dependent clause does not express a complete thought. It cannot stand alone as a sentence. It's your turn. Write some complex sentences. In the next lesson, I'll talk about subordinating conjunctions. They are often used in complex sentences. I hope you'll join me. We'll see you next time. New Grammar Bites are now available every Sunday. Remember to subscribe on YouTube. You can also find my videos for free on my website, www.mycanadianenglish.com.